Welcome back to Midlife Conversations. Today, I've got one of my favorite guests. And I say my favorite guest because not only is she a friend and she has so much great information, but this is, I believe, her fourth time on my podcast. I've got the Gut Genie, AKA Laura Frontiero. It should be Laura Frontiero, AKA the Gut Genie, but I've renamed her the Gut Genie, whether she likes it or not. Thanks for being back, Laura.
Oh, it's so good to be here, Natalie. This is going to be fun. We're going to talk all about it today. Where
Yes.
you've been, what you've been doing, how you've been feeling, and what next steps are.
Yeah, and I wanted to do this because I think I confuse people, especially if they follow me on social media, because I'm all, you know me, Laura, I'm always trying the new thing. Like what do I need? What's the I call it bioharmon, but I'm sorry, bio-optimizing now or age optimizing
Mhm.
versus biohacking. But people see me doing things like the oxygen chamber or I do my sauna or I do all these like things and people go, is that the thing? Is that the test? Is that the treatment? Is that the whatever? And what I want people to know, and the reason I want to do this episode, and it was important to do it right now, was
Mhm.
that there is a process, there's an order to things. And just a little quick backstory. First of all, if you haven't heard me interviewing Laura before, you definitely want to go back and listen to some of those interviews. They go in order. But just a little quick summary. About a year and a half ago, I was sick. A lot of things going on with me. I had gained weight. I was not looked at as obese or anything like that, but I had gained a lot of weight for me. I was feeling very sluggish and I was chalking everything up to perimenopause. I just thought it's aging, it's perimenopause. And I was just, that's what it is. And then when I had a blood sugar dysregulation, that's what really got my attention. And I tried to control it and fix it myself with a glucose monitor and going keto, and it did not budge, didn't move. And Laura suggested to me that it could be parasites. And I thought she was crazy. I thought she was crazy. But after not getting anywhere with Western medicine doctors, I gave it a go, did a test with her, learned I had parasites. A lot more we'll go into on how you can learn more about that in a little bit. But learned it was parasites. Within the first few weeks of following a protocol she gave me, not only did my blood sugar regulate, I started feeling amazing. Things started to shift, which then allowed me to get a lot healthier. I then learned I had a breast implant rupture, which we're going to explain how things tie together today, how things tie together. I had an explant that was like kind of next on the list. And I'm now feeling better than I have in a long time, like back to my old self, I would say. And I still have perimenopause things, but not all the stuff I had that was being chalked up to that. So the reason I wanted to have Laura come back on is as I share my journey, I get a lot of messages like, okay, should I get an explant? Or should I buy this? Or do I need to do that treatment you just did in there, like this blood treatment you did or whatever? And there's a particular order. And I want to explain to you or have Laura explain why the gut health, why looking at what's going on in our gut biome is that most important first step. So, okay,
Yeah.
Laura, take it
Yeah.
away.
Okay. So, yeah. Then, and now we're right back to talking about gut and toxins and parasites and all of it. So, I'm going to speak in analogies because I think analogies are always make it easier to learn something. So if we think about building a house, and I'm a daughter of a contractor, general contractor, was around a lot of construction growing up, lived in a lot of remodels as I grew up. And so I think that everybody understands that you don't put the roof on the house until you pour the foundation and raise the walls. If you try to build a house that way, it will not work. And fixing your body is kind of similar. There is an order of operations that helps you get the best possible results. Now, when I was working with you in the beginning, we were also kind of dealing with what you were willing to do in the moment, right? Because it was like, I don't think I
I'm not a
have the
very good patient. I gotta be real. Like I'm argumentative. I'm like, I think I know what I know. Like a lot of you listening are like that. You think you know what you know.
Exactly. And, I do a lot of teaching about how I grew up in the Western medicine world. I spent over 2 decades working as a nurse practitioner for Kaiser Permanente. And I had to unlearn what I thought was true. I had to really humble myself and realize that I'd been down this path of trying to help people heal their bodies by prescribing drugs that weren't really
Mhm.
helping, that were actually probably causing more nutrient deficiencies and causing problems. And there comes a point in your career, in your life, in your journey, whatever it is, where you get to realize, oh, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I don't know what I thought I know. And maybe there's a different way to do something. And so it's interesting because I was just teaching this in a class earlier last week
Mhm.
that we need to update things and do things 2024 style. So not 2001 style. And by that,
Yeah.
I mean, the gut microbiome was actually discovered by scientists and it became mainstream to to all the people here watching and listening around 2001. That's when it really became evident that we cannot ignore this thing called the gut microbiome. So if you were born before 2001, you remember that when you went to the doctor in 1995, they weren't telling you to take a probiotic.
Mm-mm.
If you were born after 2001, nowadays, even your regular doctors can't ignore the importance
That's
of
true.
the gut, right? So it's a mainstream thing. So here's what I would ask you. Is it possible that the way we handled the gut in 2001 and the way we handled toxins and the way we handled everything in 2001 from a functional perspective
Mhm.
has shifted and changed, and we've got better ways to handle things now in 2024?
Mm.
So yeah, right, because it evolves, medicine
Yeah.
evolves. I mean, back in the old days, like
The old
hundreds of
days.
years ago,
Yeah.
hundreds of years ago, we used to put leeches on people's bodies to bleed them out.
Wow.
We don't do that anymore because it
No.
wasn't very effective, right? So things have evolved. And we used to always think about, just go right after the toxins. Let's go right after the toxins and get them out of the body. But we know now that there's a few things that need to happen ahead of time so that you can successfully remove toxins without hurting yourself. So even the way we approach solving gut problems is different, and the way we approach solving toxin problems is also different. So what I don't want to do is go straight for a heavy metal chelation or go straight for moving, parabens and phthalates out of the body unless I've done some preparation. I've
Yeah.
built the foundation and raised the walls before I put the roof on.
Can we talk about what happens when we do that? Because this is a real thing for a lot of my listeners, and I get the messages. So, and I have share of a friend that this just happened to. A friend of mine was doing heavy metal chelation. She was doing, and she felt like crap, and she kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And then she retested and nothing had changed. And she's like, what was the freaking point of doing that? And then I look at other people that are doing, they do all the right things. They think they're doing like infrared sauna. They're doing all the things you talked, and they're not getting better. So can you explain how that works together and how this is
Yeah.
connected?
Yeah, so what it comes down to, I'm sure everyone here has heard about, we got to find the root cause. Like root cause is a buzzword these days. Every time I turn around on Instagram or somewhere, somebody's got a root cause program, right? Well, we've been talking about root cause in functional and integrative medicine for over 20 years, but it's taken hold. And so we got to find the root cause before there's a lot of fancy hacks and biohacking and bioelevating and biooptimizing type things that we can do. But if we're not solving four things, then it's going to take us a lot longer if we just go to those biohacking things. So those four things underline the root cause of nearly every problem that we have in our health, whether it's cancer or whether it's an autoimmune disorder, or whether it's just low energy and brain fog, or whether it's just a terrible menopause. Underlying are four things. The first thing is chronic infections. Of course, parasites are in that bucket, and they can live anywhere in the human body, not just in the gut. So they can be in your sinuses, in your lungs, in your small intestine, not just your large intestine. They can be in your bloodstream. They can be microscopic protozoa, or they can be bigger worms like what we saw come out of you. The second thing is toxins. So this is all the toxins that you've been talking about on your stories on social media. And then there's metals, there's environmental toxins, there's pesticides, herbicides, there's off-gassing chemicals from the paint in your house. I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? The third issue is nutrient deficiencies. And this is what I always teach is, we think about nutrient deficiencies being caused by farming practices that have changed over the years. So the food isn't grown in such nutritious soil, or it's people are eating too much processed food. But here's what I would say is that nutrient deficiencies are actually caused by the first two problems, infections and toxins. And there's a reason for this. Number one, infections are kind of skimming off the top and taking your nutrients from you. And number two, the toxins are blocking the receptor sites in the cells where nutrients go in. So think of your cells like having doors and windows that need to be open so the nutrients can get in. They're blocked off by
By the
toxins.
way, any of you that might be rolling your eyes at this part, this is literally what was happening to me. Is that so? You would have looked at me and said she's fit. I was eating like as perfect as I could. I was eating organic. I was eating natural. I was paying attention. I was taking my supplements. I was working out. I was moving. I was paying attention to the kind of water I was doing all those things, and I was still having issues. And this was why.
Yeah. So the fourth thing is really the whole dysregulated nervous system that's caused by things like stress and trauma and all of this. So all four of these things can be a problem. Now, if we just go straight to red light or straight to, EBU or straight to, and we aren't addressing these things underneath, then you might feel a little bit better, but you're not going to completely resolve or have long-standing results. So that's always my goal is,
Yeah.
how can we spend the least amount of money on your health and get the biggest bang for your buck? And EBU is very expensive, thousands and thousands of dollars you're going to spend on EBU, and it's amazing. And I mean,
She's
I
talking
think,
about a thing that I shared on social media, but I did it after all this other
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yes. So this is a way that you kind of get oxygen into the
Yeah.
body and cleanse the blood. And this is one of the biohacking things you've done. So here's the thing, though. The biggest bang for your buck to figure out what's happening in your body and start to unpack those four root causes is a gut test, and is a evaluation of the gut microbiome to see what's living in there. What's the inflammatory situation in there? What is the immune system doing? What is holding you back from being able to
Yeah.
process your food and make energy from it so that you can heal? So that's what we did with you, is we started with this gut test and we figured out, like, oh, you've got parasites, you've got
Hmm.
bacteria, you've got
I had all the
digestive stuff
things.
going on.
She
Yeah.
said, based on what it looked like, I looked like I had leaky gut too. You saw all kinds. It just made sense. Everything made sense. Even what you saw on my gut explained why I was presenting estrogen dominance. That
Yes.
was
So there's
wild.
a liver marker there. It's called beta glucuronidase, and it tells us kind of how your body's handling toxins that are supposed to be excreted from the body. And it also tells us what's happening with spent hormones like estrogen.
Mhm.
So, I think it's really important in a public service announcement that we really talk about all gut tests are not created equal. So I think people may be listening right now and going, great, I'm going to run out and get a gut test. Not so fast. There's a lot of stuff out there that's a DIY, not
Okay.
near as thorough or anything like I did on you.
Yeah.
You really need to work with a practitioner who understands how to get you the kind of test that can get you those results. If it's a DIY test that you can just go online and buy, and usually they'll give you an eating plan or a supplement, probiotic based on
Okay.
your results, you got to run far from
That
those
makes
types of
sense.
companies. Yeah.
Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit and ask, because I'm just going off of questions that I've gotten, especially since we've done three master classes now together. This is your fourth podcast with me. Like, I'm getting a lot of questions about what you teach. And sometimes I actually know them. I'm proud of myself. I'm like, I know the answer. And sometimes I definitely don't. Can you help me understand? I mean, I understand. I think that I don't know how good I am at explaining it, why people don't want to just do a catch-all parasite cleanse. Because we see people doing that too. Like, oh, I just went on Amazon and bought a parasite cleanse, or I just followed this influencer and bought a parasite cleanse.
Yeah. Okay. So number one, I'm going to say something that may not make sense, but your parasites are helping you. So the reason that your body allows parasites to be there, and I say your body allows it because your immune system is very strong and intelligent, and it knows how to help you. And if it's allowing something like parasites or candida or H. pylori, which is a bad bacteria, any of this number of things, what your immune system is essentially doing is allowing this thing to be there so it can sponge up and clean up toxins. So parasites like to eat and live in toxins, and it helps take some of that toxic burden off of your organs and off of your body, while at the same time, it does create a whole bunch of symptoms and problems, but it's the lesser of the two evils, right? So the
Mhm.
parasites are a lesser evil than the toxins hitting your brain or your heart or your vital,
Okay. So this is where when people think parasites are good for you, they're not good for you. They're just the lesser evil of, and they're helping to clean up
Yeah,
stuff right now.
yeah, they're not good for you, but they're helping make a bad situation less bad, but they're
Okay.
creating their own bad,
Yeah.
right? They're
Yeah.
creating other problems.
So,
Mhm.
okay. So what happens when someone just does a catch-all parasite cleanse? Are they just
Right.
killing stuff randomly? And then tell us what happens.
Right. So this is a problem. You can actually cause more harm than good. So not all parasite cleanses are created equal. And one of the things that you want to really do is you want to, number one, you want to support the body before you do a parasite cleanse. So there's a few things you should do ahead of time.
Mhm.
You want to boost up mitochondrial energy production so that your immune system has more energy to ramp up and solve
Okay.
this once you start killing things. You're going to want to open up the drainage pathways in the body. So that includes the lymphatics, the fascia, the lungs, the
Mhm.
kidneys, the urinary system, the bowels. We got to have you pooping. And here we can't do a podcast without saying the word
Mhm.
poop. So we got to have you pooping regularly and really be moving your body. And then how you kill parasites matters. So these guys are tricky and smart. And so you want to like hit them and paralyze them and kill them and get them all out in one piece. You
Okay.
don't want them dying and decomposing inside
Wow.
of you, releasing all the toxins back into your body. You really want to move them out rather quickly.
Okay.
And there are very few protocols that actually can accomplish this.
Got it. Okay. Okay. My next question on that, and it was actually one of your friends I was following that I saw this in her social media post. She did like a series of colonics and she showed parasites coming out with that. Where does that fall into play? And is
Mhm.
that one of those later things, or is that
Right.
like kind of a whatever dumb or
Right.
it is? I don't know.
Okay, well, that's a great question. So remember I said earlier that parasites can live anywhere in the body. So a
Mhm.
colonic cleans out the colon. Well, those parasites, as soon as they realize, whoa, 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 something's getting disrupted
Mhm.
here, what do? They move up into the small intestine and they move out through the bowel wall right into your bloodstream. They just move right through.
Okay.
Your gut is permeable. That's that
So it
thin layer.
could get some out, but a lot of them are going to move and hide.
Well, yeah, you're not going to hardly get any out because they're going to scatter. So
Got it.
imagine if you had a bunch of mice
Yep.
eating something in the center of the room and somebody walks in, what do?
Oh,
Ooh, they scatter. They
makes
move.
sense.
Great. They're smart. They don't want to die.
So that's like even when you have a colonoscopy and you do take the oral
Yeah,
stuff to get it, it's just going to happen.
they just move right away from
Okay. So it's not a good way to do it. So is that also why, like when people say, well, I had an endoscopy or I had a colonoscopy and they didn't see anything. That's
Of
why.
course not. Yeah, mostly you're not going to see something because they move to the small intestine, which we're not looking at with a
Got
colonoscopy.
it.
And endoscopy is only looking into the stomach and maybe into the top of the small intestine called the duodenum, but everything else is invisible
So
to
you're
our
not, so
scope.
unless you have a full on huge giant tapeworm, they're not going to see it.
No.
Yeah. And hopefully you don't have that either. Okay.
Yeah.
What about when people hear you talking or they hear and they're like, well, I'll just go ask my doctor to do a test. What does typical Western
Mhm.
medicine think of
Mhm.
when it comes to
Yeah.
parasites?
Yeah. So your doctor is going to order a test called OVA and parasites. It's going to look for about 3 or 4 different parasites that are
Mhm.
considered pathogenic in the Western world. But here's a good analogy for you. You're collecting a poop sample, right? That's how
Mhm.
this is done at your doctor's office. I want you to imagine you were going fishing and you cast your line in the water and you know there's fish in that lake. You know there are, but you didn't get any bites that day. You didn't get a
Mhm.
fish. Does it mean there was no fish in the lake? No, it means that your bait didn't work.
Right.
And so when you're doing a stool
Makes
sample,
sense.
number one, you're collecting a stool sample and then you're taking a little scooper and you're actually just getting a tiny little sample of that and putting it in a test tube. What if there was no particle of parasite or ova,
Yep.
egg, or any part of the life cycle of a parasite in that sample of stool that day?
Which,
It's
by the
like,
way, that is the test my doctor ordered for me first, and it showed nothing. And then, like when I did the test with you, it showed all kinds of things. So yeah, I can relate to that. Okay, what about? I'm sorry, I have all these like random questions, so
okay.
hopefully they go in order. And when some people say, because you can find anything on Google, right? It says parasites aren't a thing; it's just biofilm coming out. What does that mean? What is biofilm, and do we want biofilm in us? And can it look like a parasite?
I think what you're talking about is mucoid plaque. I mean, this is a big, giant debate in the Western world. Like, what is it? Mucoid plaque can be anywhere along your small and large intestine. And when you're doing parasite cleanses, oftentimes this like long, stringy, thick stuff will come
Yeah.
out. And there's a lot of debate on what it is. And we think that what it is biofilms, which is kind of like a force field that your bacteria and parasites will build around them to hide
Okay.
from your immune system. Think of it like a mucus layer.
Hmm.
And it will also be it will also be just buildup of stagnant junk in your
Mm,
bowels. We think it's colonies of bacteria, parasites, a whole mix of stuff that's
stuff you
coming
don't
out.
want anyway.
No. And so what happens when you move this, like the big debate of what is it? Is it a parasite or is it a mucoid plaque? Like, what is that? Here's what we know. Better out than in.
Yeah.
People imagine you absorb your nutrients in your small intestine, and if that is plugged up in your small intestine, making it impossible to absorb nutrients, people feel a lift in energy, a lift in brain function, better sleep, more
Wow.
balance,
Yeah.
more balanced emotions when you get this stuff out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. You talked about pooping regularly. Let's talk a little bit more about that because, and I can tell you so many women that come through my programs, one of their big concerns when they first start is that they're not going. They're going once a week or they're going every 3 days. Why? I mean, to me, it's kind of like a logical thing that it makes sense. You just want it out of you, but help us understand like why this really is important to be going
Yeah.
every day.
So before we even give you a single parasite cleansing herb, we want to make sure that you can eliminate your bowels. And the reason is because what we're doing in the beginning, before we start moving parasites out and toxins, is we're getting all of your drainage pathways to funnel towards the bowels. So if you think of your skin, you should not have toxins coming through your skin. If you've got skin flares, eruptions, itchiness, scratchiness, psoriasis, dermatitis, that's stuff coming through the skin that shouldn't. It should all funnel towards the bowels. We want waste coming from your liver to go to your bowels. We want waste from your lungs to funnel out into the bowels.
Hmm.
We want a one-way path. Your lymphatics, your fascia, all of it should funnel towards the bowels.
Okay.
If you are not able to eliminate your bowels as you're moving toxins out of the cells, and
Mhm.
if you're trying to do a detox protocol without bowels moving, then those toxins are going to get recirculated. So back to your friend who said they chelated,
Yeah.
and they just never felt better and they still had this huge problem. Well, chances are nobody ever opened their drainage pathways and supported
Mm.
lymphatics, fascia, kidneys, liver, like all of this so that the toxins could go through the bowels. Now,
Makes
it's
sense.
interesting when we take people through these protocols, they'll often say like, my poop smells like chemicals. My poop smells like metals. Like it's because this stuff is moving through the
Wow.
body and out.
Okay. Are what happens when somebody does first? Because this seems to be really popular. They do a heavy metal or mold detox. So I hear that a lot more than parasite cleanses. Like I'll hear or gut cleanup. I'll hear. I have so many friends. Like mold is like a thing right
Yeah.
now. Like I
Yeah.
cleaned up for mold. Like what happens when you do that
Well,
first without checking gold gut?
you have mold, you have parasites, period. Because your body is going to allow the parasites to live there to help soak up and sponge up some of those mold
Okay.
mycotoxins. So mold in itself is not dangerous, but mycotoxins
Wow.
are. Those are
Okay.
the toxins that mold puts off. So if you can imagine, if you have parasites, which you do if you have toxins, your immune system is working hard to keep everything status quo, right?
Mhm.
Like you're trying to keep going every day with your day to day. You're trying to be a mom, you're trying to do your job, you're trying to run your business, you're trying to be a spouse, all the things you're doing. And your immune system is trying to keep you going. Yes, it allowed the parasites to be there, but it's also a tax. Like, have you ever had house guests that sucked? Like, they have to be there because they're related to your husband,
Oh my
but
gosh.
you're really taxing you. Well, that's like parasites are like bad house guests, right?
Got
You're
it.
taxed. So I always explain it's like a fine dance, like we're doing a tango or we're doing a waltz. We need to take some of the load off of your immune system. We need to kill some of those parasites, and then we need to go in and remove toxins, and we need to keep going back and forth and supporting toxin removal, parasite removal, and at the same time, we're simultaneously supporting drainage pathways,
Okay.
supporting mitochondrial energy production, and keeping the gut in shape because that's Grand Central Station. Your brain and your gut are in constant communication with each
Okay.
other to make every function in your body work.
When somebody says that they like, so I mean, I could think of three friends right now, literally three friends that have been on this mold detox for like 2 years.
Mhm.
And they are just not feeling better. So you would say it's because they haven't done this deeper work here and it's just not gonna, it's just an end. They're just
They haven't
recirculating
done it.
mold.
They haven't done it in the right order.
Okay.
So we want to start in the right, just like we're raising the roof on the house. We're not
Yeah.
doing that until we have a footing, a foundation, walls, the plumbing and electrical are in, then we're putting the roof on. So for people that come into our programs that have mold, we definitely want to support that. We start helping that move out safely right off the bat. But our number one goal is to open drainage pathways, support gut microbiome, support brain and mitochondria, support all of this. And then once that's done, we can seriously go in and push mold toxins out. And I've seen people, and I'm not kidding, Natalie, I've seen people actually clear their mold toxins in 3 to 5
Wow.
months done.
Yeah.
And you look at their test, because we order toxin tests, and we
Yeah.
see like, oh, here they all are, and here they all are not.
That makes sense. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's very black and white. When you, how much, what's your belief of how many people actually have parasites? Because I think you believe like most people are walking around with
People,
them.
right. I mean, they live in an environment with us. Like there are parasites in us, and our body can usually clear them, right? Our immune system is made to clear them because we get
Okay.
parasites. Parasites aren't just in third world country. We get in trouble for saying that. Developed countries.
Underdeveloped. Yeah. I
Yes,
got in trouble last
parasites.
time.
Yes, parasites are in not just in underdeveloped countries, they're in developed countries as well. So, I live in San Diego. We're next to the Mexico border. The parasites that are coming from the sewage that's getting dumped into the ocean in Tijuana doesn't stop. It comes right
Yeah.
up to
It could.
our ocean, right? I mean, it's
And
there.
I
And
just think what I learned too, because I eat, it's not just from eating raw sushi, by the way, which I don't eat anymore after learning what I've learned, but it's all the organic vegetables too. Like it's all the raw milk. It's like think about the stuff that we do thinking it's healthy, which it is healthy, but we are still
yeah.
putting
Oh
ourselves at
yeah.
risk for.
There's
So
parasites, it's not just undercooked meat or raw meat. It's in produce
okay,
as well. It's in our pets, our cats and dogs. It's in when we kiss
how do
people.
we, okay, so this is what I wanted to ask you. So I can understand now why pasteurizing milk became a thing or don't eat undercooked food became a thing because it was trying to help prevent a lot of this, right? But
Mhm.
now being from the health world, we're like, no, raw milk is better for you. Like you should have raw dairy if you're going to have it. You should have organic vegetables. You shouldn't have pasteurized foods. But so it gets confusing. So, like, what's the ideal state that you eat those things in their natural state, but your body's really good at eliminating? Or
Yeah.
like, or are we making the problem worse by doing that?
This is a great question. So, I mean, I think one of the best ways to illustrate this is I work with many clients who eat their salad every day and their raw vegetables, and they say, "Gosh, I have so much bloat in it, and I just feel so bad." I say, "Okay, let's get rid of the raw stuff and let's have you only eat cooked things." Now, what is pasteurizing? It's like a cooking process, right? So
Hmm.
let's have you eat cooked things. And then they say, "Oh my gosh, it's so much better. I can tolerate those vegetables now, and I can tolerate." So it's because the gut microbiome can't handle it. It's a lot more work for those bacteria to break down and ferment those fibers when they're
Mm,
uncooked. And so what people are missing is they've got a disrupted gut microbiome and they're trying to do all this healthy stuff,
got
but their
it.
immune system isn't working, their
Which is what I
bacteria.
was doing. I'm doing
Yeah,
all this healthy stuff, but I was like, what's wrong? How am I feeling? Like, not anymore, but that's how I was
yeah.
feeling.
I mean, just a free tip for all of your audience is if this is you, just stop eating raw food for a while. Just go to eating soups and stews and slow cooked and braises and just go to eating food that's very easy to
See, they're
digest.
lumping it and saying it's the oxalates. It's not the oxalates always. Sometimes it's it's this. It could be this. I
No,
mean,
I
that's
mean,
like the trendy thing right now. Everything has
I
oxalates.
know,
Got it.
I
It's
know, I
some
know.
people are sensitive to it, but
I
not
mean, I
everybody.
run organic acids tests on people and we don't see it very often.
So it's a rare thing. It's not as, but it's
Yeah.
so when people go to eating like extreme carnivore and they're like, I feel better because I'm not having vegetables. I
Yeah.
believe that this could be a big reason why.
Yeah. So what I learned from a very famous functional medicine doctor, Anne Louise Gittleman, she's like one of the mothers of functional medicine. I think she's in her 70s or 80s right now.
Hmm.
Well, one day I was interviewing her like 5 years ago, and she said to me, Laura, the diet that heals you is not the diet that will sustain you.
Wow.
And I thought this was so profound because you get people like diet is very polarizing. People swear to
Hmm.
God their vegan diet is what healed them, or they swear to God it
Right.
was their diet, or they swear, but that doesn't mean that you should be on that forever because it's very restrictive of all the other nutrients that our body needs. So remember that it may have helped you in the moment. Being that restrictive can actually cause serious problems down the road.
Okay. So what I want to I think I've asked you most of the questions that have come in here, but what I want you all to know, this was why it was important for me to do this again, is I've been sharing a lot of different things that I'm doing, but this is that foundation. This is the first place to start is gut. Whether you, there's a lot of things I talk about, and there's a lot of, age optimizing things that I love, but the gut health is the first place to start. I would even put gut health in line with when you're doing my fat loss stuff. Like I put Laura in my programs because this is so important. Like I don't think it's just about changing how you're eating to lose weight. I don't think it's just about moving your body more. Like this is a critical part because when our gut's working right, our hormones are working better. We're detoxing things better. Everything just works better. I know for me, this was huge eye opening. It made all the difference in my health. I feel like it brought me I feel like it like reduced my biological age like 10 years. Like it made me 10 years younger on a biological age just because of how I feel fixing all of this.
And I think we need to make one more point that we always get questions on, Natalie, and it's when to do a toxin test. Can we talk about
when do you do a tox? Because that's the other thing. Because I shared when I did a heavy metal and mold, and people were asking, and I said, "We'll wait and do the gut stuff first."
Right. So we get a lot of people from your community approaching me saying, "I just want a toxin test," and
my fault.
I'm a steward of your resources. So that's how I see myself. I'm a steward of your resources, and I'm not going to waste your resources. So when we do a toxin test, just right off the bat, that's the first thing we do. We're probably not going to see a lot. When we do a gut test first and work on some gut protocols and open those drainage pathways and get the body feeling safe to release toxins, when we do the toxin test about 4 weeks later, we see a completely different picture. So what I did with you was I slowly provoked your toxins. So that's what the first phase of our gut protocols is, to slowly provoke toxins out of you in a really loving, kind way to your immune system and your body so that it doesn't crash your energy.
Yeah.
And then we can actually see what's inside of you. And I get this all the time where people bring me their toxin tests and like, see, I did this.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it going, this isn't even telling us the half of what's going on. Like we need to repeat this in about 4 weeks and we'll see a completely different picture. So unless you have unlimited resources and money, which most people do not, don't bother to do a toxin test until you've done some
makes sense.
Provoking first. Yeah.
Okay. The next question is going to be, how do they work with you and how do they learn more about this? Here's what I want you all to do. So this is going to be the 4th time that me and Laura are doing it. And this is coming up here in a week. We are going to do our ever popular interactive masterclass because we are full comedians on there. No, we're not just full comedians. We actually teach a lot of stuff on there. Or Laura teaches. I'll host it. If you go to midlifeconversations.com/gut, midlifeconversations.com/gut. If you have not attended one of our classes before, you are in for a treat. She's going to show you all about how we get parasites, how we get them, where are they coming from, where are all the places that they're coming in, how do you recognize them, and what the heck do you do about them? And she's even going to talk about the proper types of testing, all of the things. So you want to be on this class. If you've attended a class before, you're more than welcome to jump on again. But we just did one of these a couple months ago, and I doing it again because of all of the questions I'm getting and the amount of people that had missed the last time that we did it. So it's on April 8th at 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 7 East Coast time. But if you go to midlifeconversations.com/gut, I'll also have it in the show notes here. But would love to have you on the class. Not only is she going to teach and you'll get a lot of great information, but we're going to stay on and answer all of your questions as well. Thank you so much, Laura, for coming back yet again. I'm sure this is not the last time. I love learning from you.